Hey guys, so today's video is going to be really lighthearted and fun. I'm going to be filling up a whole spread in my sketchbook while I also give you guys some tips on how I do my sketches. So the very first tip I have is to use art supplies that you're most comfortable with. Now for me, those are my pens, and I draw with these pretty much every day, and they don't intimidate me or pressure me into making my art look perfect, which is great because then I can have fun with it when I draw. My second advice is to keep your wrists loose while you draw. Now this really just makes your lines a little less stiff and more fluid. Next advice I have is to start with a very light pressure initially. Focus more on the general shape of the subject rather than worrying too much about the details when you start out. Next thing is, don't be afraid to exaggerate. This goes for poses and even general features, because at least for me, I don't really care too much about the drawing looking exactly like the reference photo. It varies between pictures, but usually it's their pose and the emotion on their face, even just the essence of what the picture is trying to convey, and not really having the model look the exact same. The next thing is to work on layers. Now the very first layer you're doing is you're trying to figure out the layout and the general shape of the subject, where you want them to be on the page, and then you're just going to go more and more into the details as you go along. Another thing is to try different shading techniques. Now this won't really be noticeable on this video, but I really did try to do different techniques on this one page. Like for the first one, the shading is more loose and expressive. The lines go mostly straight. My wrist is just doing an up and down motion. But then on the later ones, I try making my lines more circular. My wrist is more confined and doesn't really go too far from where I want it to go. I think this works better for drawing faces because it goes with the contours of the face a little better. But then on the bigger sketch on the right, I go back to my usual shading style because I just like it more. The next thing is to use different colors. So whether you're working with colored pencils or pens like I am, this will make it easier to separate the layers, and so even the viewers will see which lines are more important and which ones they should be focused on. Always go light to dark with the colors so it's easier to carve out the details as you go along too. The next thing is something really important, and I just learned very recently, is to have a clear focal point. focal point is just a place you want the audience to focus on. Usually for portraits, it's the face, and you can even experiment with this, have them focus on something else like their jewelry or their clothes. Just make sure you have fun with it and see which results you like better. Keep the details on the center of the focal point, and you can then fan out with the shading as you go further out of it. Like on this first one, I have 3 or 4 layers on the face, but only have 1 or 2 on her arms and on her shirt. This just draws the attention into her face, which is what I wanted the focus to be in. The next thing is to make the lines darker where they meet. I think this makes it look really interesting, and you can see it clearly on the girl on the bottom left. The places where shirt and face meet are darker and bolder than the other lines I have on her. And it is also again on the first girl, where right under her chin is very dark and even almost black, because there's a lot of lines that are meeting there. There's her hair and her chin, her arm, a bunch of other things. And so naturally that's going to be darker than the rest of her. Again, don't be afraid to exaggerate just how dark it is compared to the rest of her face. And then the last one is to really just have fun. Make sketching a habit, but never feel pressured to do it when you don't want to. It's supposed to be enjoyable as well as practice, so make sure it's not stressing you out while you're drawing. And that's it for all of my sketching tips. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you again soon.